You are listening to a Fangirls Going Rogue priority transmission.
All team, give it everything you got!
It's time to fangirl flail with Fangirls Going Rogue.
Count me in.
I don't think there's anything more important in the Star Wars universe than the fans.
News, discussion, and commentary from the female point of view.
We call this a diplomatic solution?
No, I call it aggressive negotiations.
With your hosts, Teresa Delgado, Trisha Barr, and Sarah Woloski.
Boy, am I glad to hear your voice.
Strap in, because this is where the fun begins.
I like the sound of that.
Welcome to this priority transmission of Fangirls Going Rogue. I am one of your hosts, Teresa Delgado, and on this show, we have some very special guests. But before I jump into introducing everybody, I just want to remind all of our listeners that to tune into episode 42, where we talk about Mon Mothma, inclusiveness in film, and the Oscars, and how Star Wars doesn't win Oscars. And you get to hear all of our thoughts about that. And we also started a new series called You Talk, We Listen, where we highlight new voices in fandom. So if you want to be involved with that show, send us an email to contact@fangirlsgoingrogue.com and make sure to let us know what you would like to talk about. So let's jump into this amazing priority transmission. With me are my two regular co-hosts, Sarah Woloski from Skywalking Through Neverland. What's up, girl?
Hey, I am just getting used to this time change because we're recording this on... what is that called? Spring Forward. Spring Forward Day.
Spring Forward Day. Daylight Savings Time?
Yes, that's what it's called.
And also with us is Trisha Barr from Fangirl Blog. Are you awake?
I am awake. You know, Duke won the championships last night in basketball, and I had to stay up really late, and then I got up this morning. I was like, wow, this really hurts. But I'm here. I'm excited to do this talk.
Sarah's like, basketball, huh?
Yeah, wait, Duke? What? Duke the dog? No, I'm just kidding.
It's why I'm blue on the show notes.
Ooh.
Oh, now we get the inside scoop. It all makes sense. Sarah's green for Tinkerbell, Trisha's blue for Duke. I'm just purple because I don't know why.
Because it's pretty.
So with us, like I said, we have some very, very special guests. They are from this new Scavenger's Hoard, brand new podcast. They're actually nominated for a couple of Star Wars podcast awards. And with us are Rachael and Kirsty. Rachael, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you so much for having us on. It's a real pleasure. So thank you.
Of course. And Kirsty?
Hi. Thank you so much for having us on. It's been it's great to be here.
We were excited to have you guys on, and just for me personally, I like listening to your shows, but I have to listen like after stuff has already happened.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Sorry. It's like I'm delayed. Yeah, I'm delayed on your episodes.
Yeah. We are
so let's jump right into this, and we're so glad to have you guys here. So let's talk about everything related to your show and all of that stuff. Trisha, take it away.
I wanted to know, just for people who are new to you guys, if they haven't listened to your podcast, where did your fandom begin? Where is your entry point into Star Wars?
I've been a Star Wars fan since I was a kid. Like, I saw the films when I was very small, but wasn't like actively engaged in fandom for a long time. Like, I only really got engaged in terms of online fandom community after The Force Awakens came out. So like when the prequels came out, I was a teenager. Even though I was kind of mixed in terms of what I thought about the execution of those, they kind of allowed me to go back and appreciate what I'd originally loved about the original trilogy as a child. And I just kind of fell in love all over again with the themes of Star Wars, the operatic romances between people from different worlds who managed to find connection with each other, the world building. But it was really Luke and Vader's relationship that kind of stayed with me, and kind of seeing how Anakin had been that frightened young man who didn't want to lose anything, but obviously ended up doing that because of his real desperation and insecurities. That kind of cemented my obsession with Star Wars as mythology. But it's really been only in the past year that I've become a fan in terms of the active online community.
So Rachael, what about you?
Like Kirsty, I first saw Star Wars as a child. It's like difficult to know like, I don't like have a first Star Wars memory, if that makes sense. So like, I'm not sure if like I saw the films first or I played the toys first, but I know my dad, he had like a big box full of Star Wars figures, and I had lots of happy hours playing with those figures and playing with the Death Star playset, and like that was how I first became familiar with it. Like the prequels, they kind of passed me by a bit. I did watch them, like, but not in the cinema. I only saw them on DVD when they came out on home release. And I liked them well enough, but I wasn't like super, super engaged in the sense that like I was on forums and online looking for information and stuff. Like I guess I went into the fandom proper with The Force Awakens.
Oh. So it was The Force Awakens that kind of brought you two together?
Yes. Definitely.
We met on a forum discussing it because we both became completely obsessed with the story. And I had never, this sounds so weird because I didn't have a perception of fandom in terms of like, I vaguely was aware that fandom forums existed, but it would never have occurred to me to go on and talk to people about a story that resonated with me so much. I didn't know about fan fiction or shipping or anything like that, but I couldn't bear the thought of waiting 2 years just thinking about this story by myself, because my friends in real life, like family and, you know, people around me had kind of moved on. You know, after a few weeks of talking about it, it was, they were back to watching other films and stuff like that. And I was just so fixated on the story and where it was going to go. So Rachel and I met online talking about it.
I have a question kind of add to that. What got you, as far as the fandom world, what got you either listening to podcasts, or what did you start listening to first, and the websites you started visiting and stuff like that? Because I think for a lot of people, they've tried to figure out what their entry point is going to be online. So what did you guys first start looking at and listening to?
I guess the first like proper Star Wars fandom site I joined was Jedi Council forums, and like I'd post there, and like this is all in the run up to The Force Awakens. So I probably joined like, I think it was just before that first teaser trailer broke, which I think was in November 2014, which seems like a lifetime ago now. Mm-hmm. So I joined just before that because like I was just very intrigued by what was going to happen with these new films. And yeah, I basically got sucked into the dark, dark pit that is Star Wars spoilers. And so the first sites I truly like followed for news and for podcasts was Making Star Wars. And especially now this is podcasting. It's like spoiler heaven. Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I'm very impatient. So yeah, more spoilers the better. And that also obviously has upsides and downsides. But yeah, my experience is very different from Kirsty's because I know she was completely spoiler free going into Force Awakens, for example.
I was kind of mixed on the news that there was going to be a new Star Wars film. After Revenge of the Sith, I kind of just made my peace with the fact that that was the end of it. And I didn't know for a long time that the EU existed either. So I just kind of started delving into fandom in a weird version of my own, where I started learning about George Lucas's influences for the original trilogy in terms of Campbell and Young and all that, but not following the rest of the Star Wars universe because I just didn't even have an awareness of it. Rachel and I met on the Jedi Council forums talking about The Force Awakens, and it was through there that I got familiar with the Making Star Wars website and their podcasts, and podcasts like Rebel Girl that then led me to Fangirls Going Rogue as well, because it's just great to listen to women in fandom as well, because that's not always easy to find with differing viewpoints. So
right. So what is it that brought you two to start your own podcast then?
I think your answer to this is better than mine, Kirsty.
Well, there are lots of great podcasts that we'd started listening to like within the past year, and I listen to a lot now, but we just wanted to give it a go because we felt like there was a bit of a gap in what the community was offering. We're both a bit obsessive. So we go pretty deep into things like the archetypes of the characters, the structure of the narrative, and we speculate to high heaven because that's just our jam. And we discuss any and all spoilers. We're pretty shameless in that aspect. So please don't listen to us if you're avoiding spoilers because we'll ruin something for you. Since The Force Awakens was what brought us both into the fandom, it's been analysis of that film as the main focus so far. We both write about Star Wars too. We both have Tumblrs that we're pretty active on, but podcasting is just kind of a fun way to share our ideas with people who either aren't on Tumblr or are too busy to sit down and like read a whole essay, because podcasting is just more conversational and casual. people can just like listen to it while they're going about their lives. So originally we just kind of started podcasting for our friends who had similar ideas about The Force Awakens to us, and we just wanted to talk about it and share that with them. But after we'd been podcasting for about 4 episodes, it was pretty exciting. Rachael was interviewed for an article in the New York Times about women in fandom. So that gave us a nice boost, and we got a lot more exposure from that. So that was really exciting.
Yeah, no, it was really exciting. It was very nervous, though. Nerve-wracking, though. That's why I gave that nervous little laugh. It's like, I don't understand why I'm being contacted by a journalist. We've only done 4 episodes. No, it was lovely. I was so grateful to get that exposure, and it's amazing. But, I don't know, like maybe it's like part of the national character, but I'd say British people are generally like very self-deprecating, and it's like, oh no, not attention, like which obviously seems quite paradoxical, because if you do a podcast, you're obviously putting yourself out there, you're creating a platform for yourself, and you're drawing attention to yourself. But I think it just took us aback a bit to get that much attention so quickly, but it was amazing, and it's been really wonderful to see how the podcast has taken off.
Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, I think that's one of the first places that I learned about you guys was from that article when it came out, because it had so many of us in it, and it had you guys there, and I remember seeing y'all's name. So it was really, really cool. And Trisha's really great too about, finding all of the girls that are out there and what they're doing. And so it was really neat to start listening to y'all stuff. Not to mention, I love your cover art for your podcast too. I like it a lot. So,
oh, thank you. That's by
it's very
Nemling.
pretty.
Yeah, it's by an artist called Nemling on Tumblr, who we probably don't thank enough. But yeah, she did it, and it's incredible. She's so talented.
So we have a couple questions that we ask everybody that we talk to, and the first one is: if your house was on fire, what is one Star Wars item you would run back into your house to recover? So whoever wants to take it first.
For me, this is going to sound so sentimental and tawdry. It has to be 2 things. They really do just come as a pair. And there's basically, Bespin Leia figure, an Endor Leia figure. But my niece plays with them now, and she calls them Leia and Lucy, because I don't want to have the conversation about these are both called Leia, but they're from different films. That's why she looks different, because she's in different costumes. So as far as my niece is concerned, she's only 5 years old. These are 2 characters called Leia and Lucy. But these are the figures that I played with when I was a small child, and now my niece plays with them. So there's basically these decades of experience and fun and connection with Star Wars, because I was always the kind of little girl where I really liked to have that female avatar character to get me engaged with something and to facilitate my imaginative play. I would play Pokemon, and in the early games, because you could only play as a boy, I'd invent this elaborate backstory in my head where my character wasn't actually a boy, but was a girl dressed as a boy, because she was going off and doing all this staring stuff. So I always liked to play as a girl, and those figures, they were really important to me. And yeah, Leia was important to me as a character generally. So yeah, those ones for me.
I'm really boring and I don't collect that much. I have quite a bit of the Force Awakens merchandise now that people have kind of gifted me over the past year and a half, but none of that is particularly valuable. I don't have any original trilogy vintage toys or anything, but if I had to pick one thing, it would probably be a piece of artwork that I bought at last year's Celebration Europe, titled Rey's Abduction by, I think he's called Eric Mayle. And it's just a really beautiful piece. I love looking at it.
That is a beautiful piece. I love that. Did you both go to Celebration last year?
Yes, that was where we met in person for the first time, which is really nice. Yeah, it's really cool. Because Kirsty's in America and I'm still in the UK, so it was really nice that it was able to work out that we were both able to meet at that particular event. So it's really cool.
Woohoo! So beyond the Star Wars, what other fandoms are you guys into? We'll let Kirsty go first, and then we'll go to Rachael.
Star Wars is the only fandom I'm actively engaged in, but some other shows and movies I like are Twin Peaks, Doctor Who, Buffy, Planet of the Apes. Yeah, I'm pretty into sci-fi and fantasy generally, so. But Star Wars is the only thing that I can think of that's really taken over my life.
Yeah, for me, I'm like, I still love it. Like, I'm not as hardcore into it as I used to be, but I adore Labyrinth, Jim Henson's Labyrinth. So it's like hardcore, like in the fandom for that for like at least 10 years. So yeah, that took up many, many hours of my life. And also I'm into Jupiter Ascending in a big way, which I call my sparkle trash fest space movie. It's very trashy, but it's really fun and I love it to pieces. And yeah, and besides that, I love a whole bunch of things. Like, I wouldn't particularly say I'm in the fandom for these things, but like, I love Gallivant, like Kirsty, I love Twin Peaks, I love Doctor Who, and yeah, like lots of sci-fi and fantasy stuff.
Well, it sounds like you guys are into like old school sci-fi with Planet of the Apes and things like that. That's really cool. Now, it's interesting because, like, Rachael, you're almost very new to Star Wars fandom in general, but Kirsty, it seems like you've been in it for a while. So would you guys say that the Disney sale has changed your fandom or maybe started your fandom? What would you say about that?
I would say that it is completely changed my fandom because it's the Force Awakens that changed it. And I guess that's linked to the Disney sale. I don't know. I was really skeptical about the Disney sale, to be honest. I kind of made my peace with not having any more Star Wars after Revenge of the Sith. And then it just, like, I went to see The Force Awakens with not really any expectations. People kind of dragged me along to see it, and I ended up loving it way more than I thought I would. The most character-driven and thematic Star Wars film I'd ever seen. I got really, really excited about where things might be going for these characters and what it could mean for the themes of the saga as a whole. So yeah, like it completely changed it because it compelled me to go online and start talking to other fans, which was something I never thought I would do.
So in a way, it's how you two met.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We wouldn't have met if the Disney sale hadn't have happened and The Force Awakens didn't exist, basically. Yeah, for me, I guess the Disney sale changed things by just reinvigorating my interest. Like, because while, like, I'd always loved Star Wars, I hadn't really been actively following it for a long time. But yeah, like, when I knew Force Awakens was on the horizon, that suddenly made it feel much more, like, immediate and appealing to me. And I think especially knowing that there was going to be this central female character, that made it more, like, enticing. Yeah, like, it changed it for me in a positive way. Like, so I'm sure it changed it in a negative way for some people who, like, really love the old EU and everything, which I totally understand. But like, I do think it really refreshed it and reinvigorated it in a way that, like, strongly appealed to me.
So I think it's really cool that you guys have bonded over The Force Awakens, just because so many Star Wars podcasters and bloggers and just people that are involved in fandom have been engulfed in Star Wars since the original trilogy came out, or even with the prequels. But for you guys, it was The Force Awakens. And I feel like that's a refreshing view. There's not a lot of podcasts out there that are like that. So what right now excites you the most about Star Wars? Let's go to Rachael first, and then we'll go to Kirsty.
I guess it's just the prospect of them doing really, like, exciting and refreshing things of it going forward. So I really like Rian Johnson as a filmmaker, and I especially like how imaginative and, like, distinctive his films are. Like, he does, like, really cool things with them, and he, like, approaches his subject matter in these really, like, novel and unusual ways. Like, while I loved The Force Awakens, I absolutely understand some of the criticisms that is a bit derivative and that is very much beholden to A New Hope in many respects. And while I think that was fine for The Force Awakens, the thing that really excites me going forward is to see them move beyond that and to just really bring new life to it by going in different directions and, like, exploring the mythology and, yeah, like, just bringing new life to it. And I also want to see that in the new expanded universe as well, because obviously at the moment they're a bit tied in that they're not really looking into the events leading up to the sequel trilogy much, because they don't want to spoil things that are actually going to be revealed in the films. And yeah, I'm just looking forward to finding out what happened to Luke after Return of the Jedi, rather than, like, all these endless vague references to he was finding old Jedi lore. I just want more information.
I think for me, it's the idea of having a mythology that speaks to our society as it is now, because there are all these universal truths in Star Wars. You know, it has all these themes like love, redemption, friendship, forgiveness, and hope. But it's like seeing the development of these new characters who are in these kind of age-old archetypes but have a contemporary spin. That's what's really exciting for me, because the characters of The Force Awakens really spoke to me in terms of today's political climate, but also on a very personal level. There's nothing else really like that in my opinion, in terms of like these large franchises. Like, I'm not a huge Marvel fan. I think a lot of comic book movies can be a bit shallow, although I'm hearing good things about Logan, so I'm going to go and see that. The idea of having like this modern mythology is just super special, and I'm really hoping and crossing my fingers that Disney somehow keep it special rather than it just kind of devolving into this thing where they have to churn out a new film every year. So
that is a fear, like the fact that there's so many Star Wars movies coming out, that will it dilute the fandom, or will it dilute, the mythology, like you said?
Right. Yeah, I guess we just have to wait and see. I mean, we loved The Force Awakens, and I thought Rogue One was great as well, so we'll just see. Fingers crossed for The Last Jedi and Han Solo.
Yeah.
Well, and I think a lot of it depends on how they approach the stories. If they're going at them from all different angles, and it's not like they're just trying to do the same thing but talking about a different character, then I think we're good. I think that's one of the things that Marvel has going for it, is they have so many different methods of storytelling that the films kind of are very different from each other. Sarah, I don't know if you would agree, or Trisha, with that, but how many films are there in the Marvel universe? There's like, what? There are like 15?
Yeah, like 12 to 15, something like that. But you're right, because like Ant-Man was kind of a caper film, and then you had like this more of a spy movie with Civil War, and there's like different genres within the whole superhero franchise, and that's kind of what they're doing, at least with the standalone movies of Star Wars. We're going to get a very interesting and different take, I think, with the Han Solo film, which we still don't have a title for, do we?
No.
Yeah, we need a title for that one, man.
We might have it in a few weeks. That might be something they announce at Celebration.
That's true. That's true. And maybe we'll get to see Corellia, which I've always wanted to see. Please, can we see that?
So we know that you guys love to speculate, and I'm just curious because I know, Trisha, you do some. I would say you're kind of like moderate. I don't know if you read everything, and then Sarah, you might read a little bit more than me, but I
don't think
pretty
so.
Much like no, you're not. Do you live in a box like me? Like the box of like don't read anything, because that's where.
Well, I just watch like what is officially released, or
yes. Okay, so we're the same.
Mm-hmm.
We're the same. So like Sarah and I, we pretty much we only read what they actually give us, know. So what is it about speculation for you over on Scavenger's Hoard what does it bring to your fandom?
Oh, that's a really hard question, because I wasn't speculating before The Force Awakens, so all of my speculation thus far has been based on what we've got in that movie. So we started with analyzing what's actually there in the story, and then we kind of speculate as to how the rest of the characters' arcs might progress. But I don't know. I just think it's really fun to look forward, and we had an episode where we kind of went through all of the spoilers that we've had thus far, and like threw out our wildest dreams and hopes for what the rest of the story would be, but know full well that we'll go back and most of those will probably be wrong. But it's just really fun. So
does it help you enjoy the film more when you speculate? Yeah,
I mean, surely everyone is speculating even in their own heads when they're watching the movie in terms of like what's going to happen next, because with J.J. Abrams' mystery box, he has purposely set up all of these things, right? Like anyone who's thinking about who Rey's parents could be, or who Snoke is, or what's going to happen to this character, or will Kylo Ren be redeemed, that's all speculation, right?
Yeah. What's funny about that is all those questions that you just asked, I do not think about any of those ever.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I don't. I'm like, I don't care who Rey's parents are. They'll tell me when they're ready to tell me. And I don't care if Kylo Ren gets redeemed. If he does, he does. If he doesn't, he doesn't. Like, I don't even let my brain go there because I'm super weird like that. I don't know.
No, I think that's probably healthy. Yeah. To be fair, I do think that the fandom, and maybe this is the mystery box's fault, but there's a lot of emphasis on certain things about the story, like who Snoke is and who Rey's parents are, and then other things kind of get a bit overlooked or somehow lost in the shuffle. that was partly one of the reasons that we started the podcast, because we did kind of want to go back to the core story as it is right now, and then say, what might this mean for the future? Like, what does it mean when this person says this, and when this scene happens, as opposed to a lot of the theories that you see on like who Snoke might be. That's not something that appeals to me, because there's very little to base that on.
I think for me, like Kirsty says, the most important part about speculation is I just find it fun. And I guess for me personally, it's also just is like a way to display passion for this. Because like the reason why we speculate and the reason why we have like ideas for where things might go or where they might not go is because we're invested and we really care about these characters, and that causes us to develop preferences for where things are going to go and like ideas in our heads about where things might go. I think that's all absolutely fine, and I think that's a fun and good way to engage with these things. I think it becomes a problem if you become dead set on a particular idea for where the story will go, like, and you refuse to accept anything else. So if you're like, right, the film has to play out like this, this, and this, and if it doesn't, then Star Wars is dead to me. That is absolutely the wrong way to do it. That is a recipe for disaster, and you're going to end up hating it, because like, I think I'm probably in a unique position amongst the people speaking here, because I knew everything that was going to happen in The Force Awakens before I saw The Force Awakens. Because, are we allowed to talk about what happens in Force Awakens? Like, Force Awakens spoilers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I thought that's probably well by default. Yeah, so, like, I literally knew everything. I knew that Han died, for example.
Oh, wow.
Like, I knew up to and including that.
Gosh.
Yeah, like, and this was willingly, like, it wasn't like it had been spoilt for me by accident. Then I'd be appalled, but I had gone in with my eyes wide open and read this stuff. And I'd say it gave me like a peculiar first viewing, because in a way it was waiting for things to happen that I knew were going to happen. But I think in the long term, I actually was glad that I'd done that to myself, because like it made the transition to this new sequel trilogy and what was going to happen in the sequel trilogy, it made it easier because I kind of knew what was coming. I was prepared for it. So I think for many people, Force Awakens was a big shock to the system, because obviously it blew away lots of the old EU. It like destroyed many people's headcanons about what would have happened with particular characters. And yeah, like I expect Force Awakens is quite traumatic for some of those people. But for me, like it was just like, okay, yes, no, I can accept this. Like I can roll with this. And yeah, so it worked out well for me.
Yeah, I just that when I went to see it, that I knew what was going to happen, most of it as well, but the gentleman next to me didn't, and he turned and said, "Are you okay?" And he wasn't prepared for Han Solo to die, so I was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "No, I'm not okay." Like he wasn't prepared. Although I think if you watched enough of the talk shows and lead ups, you know, they talked to Harrison Ford about wanting Han Solo to die and stuff like that. Like if they were preparing people for it, if you wanted to pay attention to it. If not, you didn't, it just wouldn't make sense. But actually people were really good. The whole fandom, nobody really talked about it in general. Like it wasn't a big spoiler out there. There were people who were going in weeks later who were like, I didn't know that was going to happen. My dad didn't know it was going to happen. So it wasn't like they were blasting it on the news. Oh, Han Solo's dead.
Yeah. So I think that's the way it should be with spoilers. Like I absolutely think these things should be kept to very small circles, so that only the people who really want to know these things can find them out. Like I think it would be awful if BBC News like posted Star Wars spoilers in their headlines, and that is something I'm a bit concerned by in this like Last Jedi era, because I see every like film site running like just going with every single new rumor that's posted on Making Star Wars, and it's a bit like, guys, this isn't in the spirit of it really. Because you just see a lot of irresponsible reporting, and I think that's bad. That's like where it's crossing the line, because it means people who don't want to see these things will see these things even when they're not seeking them out.
Yeah, that's very true.
No, that's gonna stink. Yeah, I go run and hide. And as the girls were talking, Sarah, it got me wondering something. And this is kind of in our area because of the parks, you know.
Yeah.
When new rides and parades come out, do you watch
No.
like the live? No. See, I don't either. Like I haven't seen Rivers of Light.
No.
And I'm refused to watch WDW Magic's periscopes of Rivers of Light. I'm not watching you
well,
until I actually get to see.
Exactly. You want to experience it for yourself the first time. Like, I'm very, like, I don't want to watch something that I know that eventually I will experience for myself live. You know, I don't want to ruin it for myself. So, like, I haven't even watched, I know Disneyland Hong Kong has, like, the new Tron ride and the new Pirates of the Caribbean ride, and I haven't watched any of that. Have you?
No.
Yeah.
No, I'm not. I don't know if I'm ever going to go there, but I just can't. I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah, exactly.
For myself.
Yeah.
So anyway, okay. I was just curious.
No, it's an interesting.
We're getting ready to be at Disney World, and Rivers of Light is open. So I didn't know if you had already watched the Rivers of Light thing or not, because I haven't.
Exactly. Well, let's bring it back around to Kirsty and Rachael. Now, for you guys, I know you said you're not big collectors, but because you got into, The Force Awakens so much, do you have anything, like, what's your most recent Star Wars purchase? And it doesn't have to be a collectible. It could be, like, clothing or jewelry or something like that, because we're girls and we have all this cool stuff now.
The last thing I bought was quite embarrassing, because I'm getting ready to go to Celebration. And I was talking to some friends about waiting in line, and they were like, oh yeah, you need to bring sleeping bags and this and that and stuff. So I bought some Kylo Ren pajamas so I can be comfortable waiting in line. So that's me.
That's a good idea. You know what? I'll bring my BB-8 pajamas and we can be pajama buddies.
Okay, sounds good. You got to stay comfortable. You're going to be there for like 10 hours. So.
Yes.
I bought there's a new comic adaptation of The Force Awakens out. It's like done in a vaguely like manga-ish style. And it's pretty good, and it only costs £3.99, which is very cheap, because I think the Marvel adaptation of The Force Awakens was like 6 issues, and they cost like £3.99 each. So for a sixth of the cost, you get the whole movie in one go. Yeah, and it's a nice comic, and it's also very funny because Kylo's drawn like he's some kind of supermodel posing like Ben Stiller from Zoolander, and it's really funny. Like, I'm exaggerating. It amuses me. It tickles me somewhat.
We wanted to talk a little bit about this great news that came out of the Disney shareholder meeting. And one of the things we can talk about too is that even when people reported on it, they didn't necessarily report on it correctly. Like, a lot of the headlines were, "We know Luke's first words," and that isn't necessarily true. So what did you guys think of the information we got out of it?
Well, first of all, before we go into that, the information we got was a series of tweets, right? It wasn't the actual footage itself.
Yeah, it wasn't the footage. It was tweets from reporters and media at the shareholder meeting. And then some write-up. /Film did a pretty good write-up, and Club Jade has a collection of the tweets if you really want to go read them. So,
right, that's what I read, was the collection of tweets. Even though I'm not into spoilers, so I did it for you guys.
Like, it was really interesting. This is like the first solid report we've had on any The Last Jedi footage. Yeah, I'm already hyped for that film. And yeah, like, it just made me excited to like get a hint of what we can expect from the forthcoming trailer, because what they showed at the shareholders meeting, it doesn't seem like it was a full-fledged trailer. Like, it's more just the case they took specific shots and like put them together for the sake of this meeting. So they wanted to keep things like very brief. They obviously weren't going to show the full trailer of that kind of event. But yeah, like, it sounds like it's a good preview. And there's like interesting teasers for things, like obviously with that whole "who are you" question. Yeah, like you say, that was very heavily misreported on, because there's all kinds of headlines saying that's Luke's first line, and it seems unlikely that that's the case. But again, like, that's just part of a wider message of being very cautious about Star Wars reportage in general, because a lot of it is so unreliable, and you see people taking these like baseless Reddit rumors and YouTube theory videos and presenting them as fact often on these other websites, and it's just not good.
I think I was most excited about the Calamari Tran sighting, because some people had been worried that she might turn out to be like a CGI alien, like the same deal as Maz, which I love Maz. I think she's great, but Star Wars has an issue with women of color and that there is a distinct lack of them. So I'm glad to hear that she's going to be playing a human, and I'm really excited to see how her character's arc is going to be with Finn, because the tweet said that she was with Finn in like in First Order uniform. So yeah, that was the most exciting part for me.
The interesting part really is that we get to see the characters that we'll see in the movie. You know, we see Luke and the question asked, and it's like they're trolling the fans at this point. You know, like, who are you? And everybody has to remember that a lot of things in Rogue One and even the Force Awakens trailers were never in the movie, specifically dialogue, things that happened, things that people were really looking forward to. I mean, remember that I Rebel didn't happen in Rogue One.
Yeah, I still see that on merchandise. It's not actually in the film.
I have one of those shirts. There's Poe and X-Wing and you know, it's weird because we're all attached to Rey and BB-8, but I think he's going to be back with Poe. You know, and we see Chewbacca, a lot of X-Wings, Captain Phasma, which excited me that we got to hear that she's back in it, and some shots of Rey with a lightsaber. And they've even Daisy Ridley's done some Instagram shots of her working with the lightsaber. So, you know, none of that is a surprise. And Leia, again, which for some people is going to be harder to see her. So, you know, those are the things that we'll be looking forward to. There were no shots other than Kelly Marie Tran of any of the new actors that are going to be, that we know will be in there, like Laura Dern wasn't shown, and Benicio del Toro.
I found it interesting that there's no Kylo Ren in like the footage from what was described. I'm sure he'll probably be in the real trailer, but like it indicates to me they might be trying to keep that character more under wraps in their promotion for The Last Jedi.
Yeah, really the only bad guy is Phasma that they met, that you see mention of in the so it kind of sounded like it was more like a hero reel than a other. And yes, we will bring Phasma back because you guys really liked her, so that's good. Good.
Yeah, even though they didn't show a shot in The Force Awakens of her actually escaping the gosh, not the Death Star, not the planet.
The Star Killer. The
Star Killer base. So, but apparently she did survive, because in the novelization, didn't they say something about that?
It's got to come back and exact her revenge on Finn. I could write a whole fanfic about that easily. So where do you guys think, and this is kind of the fun part, where do you think, based on what you know, what is Luke at this point? Like, is he just giving up hope? Is he got a master plan? Where in your mind would you imagine Luke at this point?
I don't think he's hiding. I think because doesn't Han say in the Force Awakens that he went looking for the first Jedi Temple? So I assumed that meant that Ahch-To was the site of that. So I feel like he's there for a reason. We just don't quite know it yet. Canon so far with the books and everything have been kind of pushing the idea that Luke and Ben Solo were hunting around the galaxy for Jedi lore and artifacts before Ben fell and became Kylo Ren. So I feel like all of that is going to converge and become part of the story of The Last Jedi. So it's going to be very interesting to hear what he's been up to.
Like, I definitely I don't think it was like a cowardly move. I think he's gone there to do something productive, because Force Awakens makes it clear that things went badly wrong. We don't know precisely how they went wrong, but Luke clearly is conscious that he's failed somehow, or he miscalculated or misjudged the situation. And there's obviously this strong emphasis in the new EU about Luke going off to find all this Jedi lore and all this information. So I think Luke being on Act 2, like, it's going to be about him trying to refine his understanding of the Force and try and make things right, like Lord Santeca says at the start of The Force Awakens, because things are clearly so broken and wrong, and I'm sure no one's more conscious of that than Luke is.
Well, yeah, because Luke himself didn't get a lot of, training. He's mostly had to train himself to be a Jedi, whatever that means for now, in this new galaxy. So I think you're right in that he is returning to this first Jedi temple in order to better train himself, and maybe, I don't know if he wants to start a new Jedi Order. What do you guys think? Is he thinking he should start a new Jedi Order?
I think that's like, I think we don't have enough information really to have like a fun view on that yet. Like, I think whatever happened, it's going to be clear that like whatever he did with setting up the Jedi Order that the young Ben Solo was part of, there was something fundamentally wrong with that. So I think if Luke is going to attempt to set up something new as a successor to that, then it's going to be radically different, and it might not even be called the Jedi anymore. But yeah, like that's going to be up to the Last Jedi to illuminate.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see if he's initially reluctant to train Rey based on what happened to his previous Padawan, and like if he sees something in her that makes him a bit wary, or if he's just not quite ready to rejoin the galaxy because he's doing important things there. It's fun to think about, but as Rachael says, there's very little to go on right now.
I just think that they're so well. They're indicators because of the what Jedi means to people that they wouldn't just abandon that term. So I think this is kind of like what are Jedi going to be, as opposed to what they were. So what we believe they were, perhaps working off what the creators' impressions of what that should be. So that's kind of the fun part. But in what form will it be is kind of exciting to see where they go, because the expanded universe that came after the prequel trilogies really just assumed that the Jedi became the prequel trilogy Jedi Order again, without making any presumptions of what Luke, his whole story would change, or how he may not even be able to resurrect what it was before. So, he's certainly not a person that was necessarily equipped to deal with politicians or anything like that. He's a farm boy. He needed to figure things out. So I'll be excited to see where it goes. And what about with Rey? What do you think about where her state of mind is at the end of everything that kind of happened in The Force Awakens? Like, what if you were that person? What do you think you would be? Where would you be emotionally?
I think I'd be very confused, because so much has just happened to me in a very short space of time. Because is basically, like, I think it's exemplified by that scene where Rey's just escaped from Kylo Ren, and she like hugs Finn and she says, like, explain how she got out. She says, like, I don't know what happened. I can't even explain it. And I think Rey's going to be in that place. Like, she's just going to want answers to why she has this incredible power, like what her destiny is. So she's going to be asking all these questions. And obviously she's going to look to Luke for those answers initially, because it seems pretty clear that he's been set up as her teacher figure. And yeah, it will be interesting to see like that dynamic between them, like, and how they gel, because I think like Rey, she's still a teenager, she's just a young girl, and it's going to be very interesting to see that kind of mentorish relationship. So I think it's going to be very different from what we saw between Rey and Han, for example, where that was like very jovial and lighthearted. I think this might be room for more strain, and I think we'll learn more about Luke and Rey by seeing how they interact with each other.
Yeah, I feel like Rey is going to be more introspective and questioning in The Last Jedi, because in TFA she was pretty singularly focused on being reunited with her family. Like, that was why she'd stayed on Jakku for so long, and even after she left, she wanted to go back. She was also completely swept away with the adventure. She wasn't passive. She was making decisions and getting herself out of trouble, but it was still like, now she has kind of like a breather. She can sit back and say, okay, what is it that I actually want to do with my life? Am I going to embrace this destiny and stay here and train to be a Jedi? And I think it's super interesting that by the end of the first film, she's already defeated her antagonist. I feel like that puts her in a very interesting position in terms of where things are going to go for their dynamic as well.
I'm kind of battling with the fact, is Rey an introvert or an extrovert? Because she was on the planet Jakku kind of by herself. She was a loner. So that makes me think she's an introvert. But then when she started meeting all these people, Han and everyone, she was just getting along great with them. So she seems like a people person. So I don't know if she's going to want to stay on Ahch-To with Luke for that long, or is she going to want to join the galaxy? Like, if you think about it, Rey is a lot like Rapunzel in her tower, so Rapunzel was locked in her tower for 18 years. Rey was on Jakku, and now I think she's going to want to explore the galaxy a little more. So I think maybe yeah, she needs to learn things to understand, but I think she's going to have this what is that called? Wanderlust, a wanderlust quality to her.
We don't know too how long it was and what Leia talked to her about. Like, was she going to just get Luke, or, you know, did she go there with a plan to bring him back? And he's like, no, I'm not going. She stays, you know. So you just don't know if she went there with a purpose or if she went there with, I want to train with this guy, you know, if she even had a plan or if she's just ready to roll with it. And maybe this might be a good transition into our character discussion. So I'll get Rob Jellinger to roll it.
Sidious, Anakin, Luke and Leia, Qui-Gon Jinn, C.O. Bibble, Kylo Ren, Salacious, Crumb, Bib Fortuna, Boba Fett, Amidala, Wicket, R2-D2, BB-8, I can barely keep it straight. It's a character discussion. It's the fangirls on character. It's a character discussion.
Just a quick note before we jump into this awesome character discussion. Sometimes Skype is not our best friend, and we had a little trouble on Teresa's end, so you won't hear her thoughts on Han Solo. Not that she doesn't have them, it's just that we couldn't get her connection back up, and we made like Harrison Dula in Star Wars Rebels, and we improvised. So you're going to hear wonderful thoughts, just not Teresa's, but not because she didn't have them. Thanks and enjoy. We had to talk about Han Solo. We asked the ladies. So, and Sarah, it's one of her favorites. Characters. So why did you guys want to talk about Han Solo? What does he intrigue about you as a character?
Do you want to go first, Kirsty? So I know
sure.
Han's one of your favorites.
He is my favorite from the original trilogy. I don't know why, really. Like, he's been my favorite since I was a kid. I guess it's just because he feels the most real to me in terms of not being Force sensitive himself and surrounded by this stuff that he's very skeptical and wary of, and kind of has this initially quite selfish, self-centered, motivated by money attitude, but then underneath he has that heart of gold and comes to care about his new friends and Leia very quickly. So I just love a classic anti-hero arc, and I feel like that's what he has. So,
like, I wanted to talk about Han, I guess. Like, to me, I think that character really exemplifies some of the things that The Force Awakens does so well. So I really love what they do with Han in The Force Awakens. Like, so I always liked Han. Like, he's fundamentally likable. How can you not like Han Solo? But he wasn't my favorite. I think that's because I always had a preference for Luke, because I'm a big old nerd, and Luke is just like the archetypal nerdy boy playing with toys in his bedroom. So I could identify with that in a way I couldn't like identify with badass Han Solo, because I certainly didn't swagger in places and I wasn't intrinsically cool. But yeah, like I've always liked him, but in The Force Awakens he became really super interesting to me. So I think that initially it seems a bit lazy. So it seems like he's reverted to how he was in A New Hope, and it seems like that's just a bit shallow and just another way in which The Force Awakens is derivative of the original trilogy. But I think it's actually more interesting than that. So that is his response to like trauma and how he wasn't able to deal with like this settled family life as you might have expected based on where he ended up in Return of the Jedi.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, when I think of Han, I of course think of him from the original trilogy. So for me, I mean, he is my favorite character too. And it's because, well, for one thing, I've always been attracted to that alpha male. It's like, I don't have to be cool and have swagger, but my arm candy does, you know? So that works. And then also, Han himself, he's like so full of himself. I mean, he announces himself Han Solo, Captain of the Millennium Falcon, and you think that he is like an island, a one-man island, but all of a sudden he starts to meet people, which sways his opinion. So he may be, you know, kind of a loner, Han Solo. However, it's because of the people he meets, that he's changed by them, and you see his character arc and that heart of gold come out. So I think that makes him an intriguing character, and one you have to love because he's just so lovable.
He's actually a classic follower. He puts on a good show, but as soon as somebody will take charge, he'll go there, right? If he's in the cockpit and in charge of a ship, that's great. He'll do that. But when Leia takes over, he's actually very willing to, he kind of makes a fuss about it, but he's willing to follow the lead and do something. So I think he wants to have somebody to take charge. That's always been my impression of him in the original trilogy. Like if he's piloting, that's what he's good at. There's, getting out of situations, but he's very much a go with the flow guy, not necessarily pointing himself in a direction. He'll let other people point him in a direction. I don't necessarily think that, a lot of people think from The Force Awakens that he had reverted, that he, and he even says it. There's a line where I went back to doing what I can do, but I don't think that necessarily he is, a smuggler, just not. I believe he's doing something that we don't know everything that he was doing before we saw him again in The Force Awakens. So I always tend to go with just remember that everybody is spewing bullshit in the movies. So, that's A New Hope. Leia is talking smack, and Vader's talking smack. Everybody is, and nobody's telling. Even Obi-Wan Kenobi's not telling the truth, and even that scene where you mentioned that Rey says, "Oh, I don't know what happened to Finn." I think she's not telling him something because she's been hiding things all along. I don't know what that means, but I truly believe that Rey is not telling us everything either. So it'll be fun to kind of see what the Empire Strikes Back, we get kind of exposed to what the untruths are. So I feel like we'll get to see that again.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Like it'll be mirrored in The Last Jedi.
Oh yeah. I mean, Ryan Johnson looked at that movie hard. I mean, that's everybody's high bar. So what's he going to do with it? What are the pieces that he's going to pick out? But I'd like to know what you guys would like to see from Han Solo as a young man. Cause some people are even like, I don't want to know anything about Before A New Hope Han. Like what's going to be interesting. So do you think, Rachel, that there's a story to tell with Han Solo Before A New Hope?
I'm sure there is. Like because Han isn't like my favorite. Like say I find him interesting, but he's not my favorite. I'm not like super like drawn to the prospect of a young Han Solo movie. 100% I'm going to watch it, and I'm sure it's going to be great. But I think for me, that's kind of it's going to be more the situation. This is a movie and I'm going to go and watch it and just appreciate it on its own terms. I doubt I'm going to get heavily involved in like speculating about what that's going to be about and like all that kind of thing. But yeah, like I know for sure there's going to be lots of good stories to tell, and I'm excited that there's going to be Lawrence Kasdan on the script in particular, because obviously he's so great with that character. So yeah, like it's going to be good for me on those terms.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what they do with the character, but because he has such a classic anti-hero arc from A New Hope to Return the Jedi, I'm very curious to see what they do with him before that, because I guess it's going to be this kind of origin story. Like, how did this guy become the scoundrel smuggler, right? Like, what was his early life like as a child, and what kind of support did he have or lack thereof? The kind of life events that happened to make him go into that kind of arena of crime. And when we meet him, he's not really supposed to be that likable, right? Like he's in that charming rogue persona, but it is a persona. Like I always feel like Han's confidence is just masking a huge amount of insecurity, and you really see that come through with his dynamic with Leia. He's very into her, but is wondering if she's returning his feelings, and they're both being quite mean to each other at times. So I expect to see a lot of the emphasis on like how he and Lando became friends and what maybe caused them to go their separate ways before The Empire Strikes Back. I'm really excited to see Donald Glover as Lando as well. So
yeah, definitely. I'm going to piggyback on you, because I think that what we're going to see is a lot of, I know I keep bringing this up, but I think Han's story will be kind of like Flynn Rider from Tangled. And this is just because I watched this movie again this week. But Flynn is very lackadaisical. He's kind of the thief, but very charming rogue. And I'm interested to see why Han decides to be a smuggler as well. And actually, what I'm most excited to see in this film is the relationships between everyone there, all the characters that are going to weigh on each other. Because watching Silverado, which was, of course, written by Lawrence Kasdan, it's the relationships between the four main characters that really drove that film. So I think that's going to happen with the new Han Solo film. Trisha, what do you think?
Oh, I think we're going to laugh. I think it's going to be really fun. I mean, Kasdan, Silverado is an example, or The Big Chill. He can tackle some tough stuff, but still have fun with it. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I'm kind of looking. Obviously, Empire Strikes Back was fun as well. So, you just, and he's so good at making characters kind of gel and work together. And I'm sure, what did he say? That's not what Han Solo would say. This is what Han Solo would say. So, he has that voice in his head. So I'm excited to see that. But we do know their tagline is Smuggler, Scoundrel, Hero on StarWars.com. So we're going to see maybe some heroics too, which is exciting. They're not going to abandon and make him just like Smuggler, Scoundrel guy. So there'll be some positivity. I think we'll probably start wrapping it up. Maybe we should just say we're going to come back and talk some more about The Last Jedi and Han Solo at some point with you ladies. But until then, where can people find you guys on Twitter, social media, and also your podcast?
Yeah, our Twitter account is Scavenger's Hoard, and we're both on Tumblr. I'm Bastila Bay, if people want to follow me there. And you can find the podcast on iTunes and YouTube as well.
Yeah, and I'm Star Wars Nonsense on Tumblr and Journal of the Star Wars on WordPress.
Oh, nice.
You laughing at Star Wars Nonsense?
It's so Tumblr, though. That's such a Tumblr name. It's just,
I don't take myself very seriously, as a rule.
Star Wars Nonsense. I love it. Yes. Well, we hope everyone comes and subscribes to you guys, Scavenger's Hoard, especially if you're into that speculation and spoilers. And if you want to find us, you can visit us over at fangirlsgoingrogue.com, where you can find all of our social media links, and make sure to join our Facebook group if you haven't already done so. You can request to join that closed group on Facebook. And Trisha, do you want to tell everyone where they can leave a voicemail?
You can leave a voicemail at 33121-EWOKS or 331-213-9657.
All right, so until next time, ladies, you can join us. Da 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 da.
Yup.
Yup.
Yup. Nice.
Are we ready?
Hang on. I'm doing my normal, like, kind of neck prep. Okay.
Yep. We're going to podcast.
Okay. Oh my God.
La, 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 la. Okay.
Okay.
All right. We're good.